I never played in the NFL, but somehow, I'm contributing to a pass rush discussion with Von Miller this morning on the field. So, yeah, if you understand movement and you understand how force is produced, it's a big ally in the war on mediocrity.
Middle school air raid as usual. Today I have a special guest, Dave Spitz from California Strength, here to talk all about weight training in the youth and middle school levels, and really getting a real baseline here for what you guys can really expect and kind of what you should be kind of thinking about as you're taking these kids through their youth journey. Dave Spitz, how are you doing, sir?
Man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
No, thanks for coming in. And like I said before we got started, once we got on this journey of trying to enable coaches to run the air raid at these youth and middle school levels, I started getting a ton of questions about just this. And I think it's been a common thing, even since we were kids. When can you start working out? When is it going to not hurt your body? Or is it going to hurt your body? All these old things. So I wanted to bring you in. But first, before we do that, can you just kind of give us a background on California Strength? I want everyone out here to know more about your program, and so they can kind of just understand what you do and what you're all about.
Sure. So Cal Strength is a sports performance center here in San Ramon, California. So 4,500 square feet of essentially warehouse space. But over the last 12 years, we've kind of become this center of excellence. And it started with just a strength and conditioning model that was developed because I was interested in giving kids in the area an opportunity to train like I did when I was in college. So I was fortunate enough to go to USC on a track and field scholarship. And so I just really kind of geeked out on the strength and conditioning piece of that journey. And after college, I went on to do some Olympic weightlifting and became a national level competitor in Olympic weightlifting, and just got the bug to coach and to mentor. And so, our journey began humbly enough, just like I said, offering kind of a collegiate strength and conditioning solution to junior high and high school kids in the Bay Area. And lo and behold, some of those kids went on to college and became successful. And about 4 years into the process, the first one came back from college and demanded that we train him for the NFL scouting combine. And so that was TJ Ward from Oregon. And then he went on to be drafted to the Cleveland Browns in the second round of the draft. And then it just kind of went from there, from Zach Ertz and Kiko Alonso to guys like Ty Davison and Austin Hooper, and then we started accumulating a little bit of a reputation for being good at this stuff. So we started an off-season program for veterans, and so guys that we train today, like Von Miller, and we had I trained Anthony Gordon this year, the Washington State kid. So it's been a fun journey, and I've been able to essentially do what I love every day. And what you guys are doing, trying to introduce not just football concepts, but high-level football concepts to junior high school and youth kids, I think is incredibly important this day and age. And that strength and conditioning piece goes right along with that. So let's talk about some concepts.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it, Coach. And yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head. The whole point that I got into this, and it sounds like to some extent you got into it, was educating people. And I brought my team to Dave when they were 8 years old, and we were going for a Turkey Bowl title. And and Dave let us come in, and I called Dave the week before the Turkey Bowl. I said, my kids' legs are dead. They're dead. These kids are tired. Their legs are tired. It's week 14. They're 8 years old, and we got to do something to get their legs back. What can I do, Dave? And Dave said, "I'll just bring them in. We have some rejuvenation techniques that we can use. Whether it works for 8-year-old or not, whether it's the placebo effect, whatever. But we can hook them up We can get them on the leg regeneration, and what do you call those? I'm saying the term wrong.
Yeah. No, that's a Normatec, a little compression technology.
Exactly.
They're going to work well for just about anybody.
And then we got them in the ice tub, and that, it was a lot of fun for these kids. Before we get into the X's and O's behind what you do, so Wes is a guy that Dave trains, and he's currently in the midst of a pretty crazy run right now, right?
Yeah. So Wes Kitts is one of our Olympic weightlifters. So there'll be 4 Olympic weightlifters on the men's side that represent the United States at the Olympics, which
Wow.
was going to happen here in 2020, but has been postponed in our COVID world to 2021. So he's continuing to train for the Olympics for another year, and it's been a blessing to be on a journey with him. So we've traveled around the world, and he's set the American record in the snatch and the clean and jerk. He's been Pan Am Games champion, represented us at the World Championships 3 times. Had some really good finishes there. So he's our best chance to win a medal at the Olympics in the sport on the men's since 1976.
Woo!
So, well, that would be something really cool. So we have a Netflix documentary that we're releasing called Lifting Us, or Lifting US, as it's kind of written, and so be on the lookout for that. But he's a great kid.
When does that hit?
We just sold the first installment of it, so I don't know exactly when they're going to air it. But yeah, he's a great kid that played football, played at Austin Peay University, and transitioned to Olympic weightlifting after a successful football career. So
cool, man. Thanks for sharing. You and him also tag team and work with the high schools in the area too.
Coach Russi at Monta Vista uses the Cal Strength program, and we sponsor them with the app. So, and then we actually have another guy. Wes is no longer a strength coach, but he's because he's focusing on the Olympics. But we have another kid that we employ that coaches at San Ramon. So
nice.
Yeah, we try and stay connected to the community. But
good. And I'm trying to get my T-Bird guys in there more and more. I'm gonna feel empowered to get the younger guys in there now.
It's a great culture right now. I mean, from Nate Diaz to Von Miller, it's like you have all these mega celebs walking around, and it's like they're just dudes working hard and having fun.
Exactly.
Showing the kids that is really important, and being a part of that remotely is still very effective too. So
for sure, yeah. Dave was an amazingly good football player, and I did play high school football with Dave.
That's true.
Or he went to USC. He was a year ahead of me, and he was probably our best O-line and linebacker. I know you made all league, right, Dave?
Yeah, first team, baby.
Absolutely. So, Dave, we used to run wing T back in the day for Coach Catruvo. Yep. I was a 2-back, and Dave, like I said, was O-line and linebacker, and one of the core pieces of that 95 team. So disclaimer, I do know Dave from the past, but I would have brought him on in here anyways, because when I started hearing about this California strength gym that was happening just one town over, and all these big pros coming in, it was after that I realized it was Dave that was at the helm of it. I of course followed Dave when he went to college at USC and got in on the track side of things, and it's really cool to watch his journey. But either way, long-winded way to say, I would have Dave in here as the expert, whether I knew him or not, because I know he's just got such great deep knowledge. He nerds out on this like I do on offensive football. So he's just another guy that fits in well with this group of coaches that are consuming all this content. So appreciate that, Dave. And then, so you played high school with me at Monta Vista in Danville. You said you started your football journey at freshman year in high school?
Yeah, freshman year in high school, and certainly felt behind. So I played in the 5th quarter most of my freshman career, and then my JV season I kind of broke through, figured some things out, and then went on to improve. But I was always just really interested in figuring out ways to get stronger, to get faster. So, from the time I was like in 6th, 7th grade, I had begged my dad for a weight set, put it in the backyard, and of course, he gave me the old like weightlifting's going to stunt your growth. You don't know what you're doing. You're going to hurt yourself. But I figured out how to put enough cogent argument together where he finally broke down and bought me some equipment, and so I started training myself at a young age. And so one of the benefits that I noticed right away going into high school, even though some of the kids had more experience than I did with the football X's and O's, I was certainly able to be able to hold my own in terms of a strength standpoint. And I think that was a net benefit that kind of I recognized early and then continued to try and bed into over time.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. So let's start our journey together with the fact that we're talking to an audience that typically come back to the game when their kids start getting into football, same way I did a handful of years ago. Kid starts getting into football, whether you coach them specifically or not. We try not to coach our own kids out here at the T-Birds, but it happens every once in a while. So either way, let's put that to the side. We start to get to a point where they're 4th and 5th grade. We start thinking, okay, they're going to hit middle school. What can or can't I do with my kid with weights? Or maybe a better way to start would just let you go. What do you think is the right age to even start thinking about whether it's technique or weights or whatnot? What do you think the first kind of entry point would be or should be?
So I think we have to frame the conversation a little differently.
Let's do it.
And so for me, I have 3 kids. I have a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an 8-year-old. And I started an athletic life plan for them, at birth.
Nice.
So from the time, they were crawling around in diapers, we had already set in motion a plan to develop certain qualities at certain times. And so I think people get bogged down with the idea of weight training or weightlifting specifically, and that's really not the goal. Even in a weight room, it's not to be, for most of us who are interested in enhancing athleticism. It's not, our goal is not to be the best squatter or the best deadlifter or bench presser in any gym. It's to bring about qualities that represent athleticism. And so, a better athlete, in my opinion, can become a better football player. And so, if you can learn those core traits and learn how to bring about adaptation in those core traits that make you more athletic, you're going to be well served over time. And so if we can kind of drill into what that is, what makes a great athlete, it really boils down to strength. So how much force you can produce, and then you have a strength endurance piece as well. So how much force you can produce over a sustained time horizon. There's power, which is a work over time equation, so a measure of explosiveness. There is linear speed, so how fast can you run a 40? How fast can you run a straight line? There's lateral speed, so your ability to change directions with power, with precision, and with balance and coordination. There is flexibility. So what we define as flexibility is all kind of soft tissue related, so muscle fibers, tendons, ligaments. There's mobility, which is joint driven, so like ankles, knees, hips, shoulders. Those all have optimum ranges of mobility. There's structural balance. So what type of properties do you exhibit, from a posterior chain standpoint versus an anterior standpoint? So do you have things in your body that are out of balance that are going to be a recipe for injury, or just put a ceiling on your overall capabilities? There's symmetry, so right, left, making sure that we have good symmetrical capabilities, and then there's coordination. So ocular coordination, hand-eye, foot, all that good stuff. Just being able to be in control of your own body, and so we really look at those core properties as strength coaches as those are being our job to develop in athletes, irrespective of how old they are, and how you do that. Different age ranges have different sensitivities for creating adaptations across those different properties. And what I mean by that is, a 4-year-old is not necessarily going to have the ability to develop maximal strength because there's no testosterone or growth hormone. The bone structure is still working on calcifying and improving in density. And a 20-year-old is going to have a tough time with general coordination and things like balance and proprioception. If you haven't learned those things already, you're going to have a tough time bringing about those qualities. Not that it's impossible, but the sensitivity periods, those windows are open for a time and then they close. And so really putting together the right program that emphasizes the right core traits at the right time in an athlete's development is what we ought to be talking about, in my opinion.
Awesome. No, I love that breakdown because that is a great way to define it that people like me, most just layman people, don't really think about it on that deep in every section of what you might want to pinpoint. And it's so funny that you're breaking it down like that. And even for the your little ones personally, to put together a plan, because I'm like, and I'm so convinced, and I'm telling all my friends, so I'm 40, we started having kids in our family. We have 5 kids and we started having kids in our early 20s. And, now my friends are starting to have kids of their own and they're hitting that T-ball age group of like 5. Right. And I'm just with all my heart and soul, I'm just telling them, don't start them in T-ball yet. Just wait, just do things that will get them better athletically.
Correct.
My son, and I love baseball and maybe as much as I love football, maybe more. He quit baseball at 8. He was just burnt out. Right. Like, and I was like thinking back, what can I tell my friends, or what could I do different? Or if we continue on with this, we have Diablo Football Academy. We're working with little kids. I'm like, how do we start that process at that early age? And you have to start with defining exactly these different places and these different attributes, so you can build the program around those things, and versus just like, he should go do speed work, or he should go, just real general plyometrics. Everyone does plyo. That's got to be good, right? So I love that. I appreciate you breaking it down.
People hear buzzwords and they think that's what, it's a herd mentality, you just kind of gravitate towards what everybody else is doing. But, you really have to apply a dash of logic to this type of stuff. So like you said, I mean, focusing on things that are bilaterally symmetrical, from a very young age, the first sport every kid should be introduced to is swimming, and everybody should be swimming, from 9 months on, and my kids are already negotiating with me. My 8-year-old just told me yesterday, like, can I stop swim team at age 12? Well, that's exactly the message that I want from her, because swim is an opportunity to do something very special. It gives them an objective truth that they get married to. So you swam a time, either that was your best time, it was an okay time, or it was a time that sucked. And if it sucked, why did it suck? So we talk about, we either win or we learn, and gives you an opportunity to have these conversations about, what performance is driven by. Did you sleep well? Did you eat well? Did you practice hard this week? And so it gives you a really good opportunity to have those conversations with your kids. So swim would be my first recommendation. If your kid's not in swim already, put them in it. And you can also exercise at ultra high intensity, so you can teach maximal effort in the pool without being affected by things like overuse injuries, like joints and damaging the body. So they can go max effort stuff in the pool, and they're going to benefit in really important ways. I have some other theories on it, but we'll shelve that. Theories for a different time. But the other thing is gymnastics. So like, if your kid's not in gymnastics at a young age, get them in it. Swimming,
male and female.
Teach body control. Yeah, of course. Yeah, teach body awareness. Teach relative strength. So start driving strength as it relates to how heavy they are. So your body weight as a function of how strong you are represents your relative strength. And as we find later on in life, you find the kid that can do the most pull-ups on a playground ultimately he's probably the fastest kid too, because he's got the highest degree of relative strength. So, that's a really important property when it comes to speed and producing ground reaction force.
Love that formula.
Just relative strength.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's just, strength to body weight ratio is what we're looking at.
Nice.
And then, I like soccer and basketball. So cross training them across, sports that are starting to be more team centric, that are still bilaterally symmetrical, that require some sprinting behaviors, that require, some teamwork, and starting to introduce the fundamental and tactical side of playing games. And then by 6 years old, all my kids are weightlifting. And so this is a very important distinction. What do I mean by weightlifting? Well,
Yeah, define that.
The idea that, doing a push-up or a pull-up would be resistance or weight training. And in many cases, doing a push-up or pull-up, doing a body weight exercise for a 6-year-old is too heavy. There's only a handful of 6-year-olds that are even able to do a pull-up or a strict push-up for 10 reps. And so figuring out what alternatives exist to even body weight. And so doing multi-joint movements like, the Olympic variations like snatch or clean, like teaching them how to do those movements with a dowel, with a training bar that's, no more than 5 or 10 kilos. I could show you videos of my 6-year-old, doing some pretty beautiful snatch and clean movements.
You're doing that movement at 6.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so understanding that even at young age, you're going to drive some bone density adaptations, some connective tissue adaptations, but more importantly, you're going to drive coordination. So understanding force production and force absorption. So how to control your body and how to create force through a triple joint extension, and how to absorb force properly by bracing your core correctly. And so you can teach all these things through resistance training at the earliest age. You still got to make it fun. You still got to kind of lower your expectations, but ultimately exercises in that capacity, are really powerful. And then our rule of thumb is simple, in terms of weight on the bar or resistance in general, you only add resistance to challenge positions. Once positions are challenged, then you back it down.
And define that for me. I'm sorry. The challenge positions. What do you mean by positions?
Well, like in a squat position, there's a posture, a shape that exists in a squat. Keeping an upright torso and being able to come down into a squatting movement with the weight on the right area of the foot, over the ankle. So, if the chest starts to drop, the back starts to round, now we're getting out of position. So once positions are challenged, that's all we're looking to do, and then we're not adding any more weight. And then you can progressively overload the movement over time, but.
So you have all this defined for the older levels. I mean, you work with high school guys, you work with some middle school guys already right now. I know that for a fact. Yep. And above. Do you actually have a program built beyond what you did for your kids? Because I'm going to ask you to steal that at some point. But do you have a program built that lays all this out for this young of a group right now, or is this more like stuff that you're in your head?
Yeah. No, we have we have our middle school program is built out, and and I loosely group them. It's like the classes that we have at the gym now are high school, junior high school, middle school, or adult professional type classes. And then we have just one day a week. We have youth, which is I don't care if it's a 6-year-old. Let's teach them good movements once a week. Totally acceptable. But again, I group them like that because it's really important to understand the concept of biological age. So the idea that if you're talking about especially a middle school kid, a 12-year-old can look like a baby, or he can look like me. We've all seen that. So understanding where the kid is in terms of biological years is going to help define how much weight and what types of things you can actually expect in terms of progress.
Got it. No, I love that. And that's so true. All these kids are so different. You have to really understand each of them. And if you're doing this for the right reasons, you'll take the time to do that. So that's great. And obviously we want to stress that when you're talking about, working with 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds, it's all about technique first. Like if you don't know the technique, don't just go give them a PVC pipe and tell them to go do lifts. So Dave has an app that you have an app that you run. So let's define it. So you have a physical location where you do prep work for all sports, whether it's NFL, whether it's high school, middle school. We define that. You have people come to your physical location, but you also have an app that helps people that aren't here in Northern California be a part of your weightlifting program. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we just 5 or 6 years ago just decided that it was appropriate to expand outside the four walls of the gym and to democratize messaging like this, to get it in the hands of people who needed it. And so, we have an app-based platform where we have exercises and programs that are going to help athletes of all ages and all sports kind of achieve their goals. And it's a slick little device where you can track reps and sets, and it gives you video demonstrations of the exercises and kind of gives you an opportunity through this feed to ask questions and get some technical feedback. So
nice.
It's a pretty cool move setup, and I think we have somewhere around 4,000 people training online. So
that's awesome.
We with the high end, Olympic weightlifters and football players, and we use it, with the youth crowd. So
do you? Okay. Yeah, that was where I was going with it. Like could a parent in North Carolina, we have a ton of coaches from the South, take part in the app and be able to use that to, like you guys said, you show the lifts, you could even get feedback. That's amazing that they can do that. They can get value out of that app of yours.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And I think the one important part about coaching is, you got to keep learning, and the more you understand about the principles of developing athleticism, the more you're going to understand about the body, and then you're going to you're going to adapt what you know to the football field as well. Just learning how to be in better positions and how to be able to coach better movement out of positions. So
yeah, okay.
Like awesome. I said, I never played in the NFL, but somehow I'm contributing to a pass rush discussion with Von Miller this morning on the field. If you understand movement and you understand how force is produced,
that's what it's about.
It's a big ally in the war on mediocrity.
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, it's all comes down to physics, and I'm an English lit major because I didn't want to have anything to do with it. But when it's applicable to situations like this, where you need to know how to gain that extra split second or get around that edge just enough to not be too far deep to get the quarterback. I mean, it just makes it so much more fun. And these kids, they will eat it up. I didn't know you could lift weights at an early age. I probably would have got on it much earlier if I did. And this is a way to kind of introduce them. So let's take it back now. So the long and the short of it is you can get your kids starting to work out, learn technique, start putting them in the right sports that's total body movement essentially as early as you wish. I mean, 6 years old is a perfect entry point to that.
I mentioned that my daughter was negotiating getting out of swimming. So you can push and be that dad, so to speak, in those sports that you are purposefully thinking that the kids should burn out at. So like, I never wanted my daughter to stare at the bottom of a pool her whole life.
Right.
So I push hard, and I can be that crazy dad on the pool deck, and you can kind of create some manipulation to kind of steer them to the sports that you actually want them to play long term. So
that's
if you're
smart.
creative.
Yeah, and that's smart. In some sports, just as a parent, you want them to read certain books to get their mind right. Well, here's the certain sports that you don't get to choose. I get to choose when you're 6 what sports you do.
Yep.
And fine, if they want to do volleyball with their buddy, then do that too. But we're going to do X, Y, or Z for as long as as long as I can hold out. And your body's going to be better when you're 12 because of it. I'll tell you that.
And when you're 40 because of it. Ultimately,
yeah. Well, that's absolutely.
Play today, with the children, it's really important. So whether my kids are ultimately successful in sports or not is not as important as, are they going to be healthy the rest of their life? Are they going to have good metabolic fitness? Are they going to be able to do all the recreational sports that they want, from snow skiing to water skiing to, hiking? Like that's the quality of life component is why we need to drive, athleticism above and beyond success in sports right now.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. So that's awesome. Okay. So now if you're lucky enough to still have little kids, that's some great advice. Now we got coaches in here that are just like, hey, that's great. Thanks for making me feel bad about what I didn't do right. Right now, my kid is heading into 6th grade. He's 11 to 12 years old. I never did anything like that before. What's my move now? What should I start thinking about? What should I be doing? What's kind of my next move to get him going, essentially?
Yeah, I think that first and foremost, like I said, getting yourself educated on, what good movement looks like, understanding the concept of, all force in your body, as we like to say, starts proximally and moves distally. So that basically what that means is the hips are the engine for force in the body. And so learning how to create force through the ground via a triple joint extension that starts from the hip and then works down through the knee and into the ankle. If you can just learn that to start with, that's going to be an important rabbit hole that you can continue to work down. And then I would say that if you're lucky enough to find a strength and conditioning specialist near you, you can't go to just a personal trainer. You need to go to somebody that understands biomechanics and understands this property of adaptation at a biological age. So introducing your 14-year-old to a program that has some degree of customization, not based on sport. I don't care about baseball specific or air raid specific training. I care about your kid. This is what he looks like right now. He's in the 3rd stage of the pubertal cycle. And so he's going to need to work on flexibility, mobility, general coordination, an introduction to the Olympic variations, start him with some squatting and start him with some overhead work. And then you can start introducing some sprint mechanics as well. So I think that somewhere around the 8 to 10 year range is a great time to start in track and field. So if you can teach proper sprint mechanics, looking at, I've never heard coaches say, man, that athlete's just too fast. He's too fast to draft. We can't possibly do that.
Every sport loves that.
Right. And so the idea of putting together ground reaction force and understanding stride frequency and stride length are the only things we really care about when it comes to running fast in a straight line. How to maximize those things, how to bring out qualities that represent increases in those things. So find a strength coach. Make sure he or she understands the idea of getting a kid trained in the right exercises in the right way at the right time. And if none of that's possible, don't be afraid to go buy a training bar, a 10-kilo bar, and jump on and start learning stuff via YouTube. Cal Strength is a good YouTube channel to start learning how to execute barbell movements, from squatting and these Olympic variations like cleans and snatches, and then overhead activities. So that's where I would start.
Very cool. Yeah. So this might be a real basic question, but I think it's important for people that don't just live and breathe this stuff. But, Olympic lifting combined with football, and I think, and I'll let you explain it because I'm definitely not the expert, but I would assume Olympic lifting is great for every sport, not just football. But I'd love to just hear about why Olympic lifting specifically is so good for a football type of athlete.
Yeah. So it's time efficient. So you're working several qualities at once. So from coordination to flexibility to mobility, to force production and force absorption. And you're also able to, once you learn the technique, you're able to add weight that challenges the athlete in very meaningful ways mentally. So, as you start grabbing onto bigger and bigger bars, it's hard to accelerate a heavy bar the same way you can accelerate a light bar. And so the overcompensation needs to be your body moving faster underneath that weight. And that requires you to have coordination and courage. And once we start to demonstrate courage and we overcome our fears, we talk about this all the time. A lack of confidence is one of the heaviest anchors you can wear as an athlete in any sport, football in particular.
Love it.
You start to really kind of develop a culture of confidence and of assertiveness by utilizing these lifts properly.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And like you said, the amount of different type of body movements that football players need, and there's a different movement for different positions and different body types, but powerlifting, it's something they're going to do in high school for sure. So if you can introduce it now, and at the very least get the technique right. I had my oldest son went to Dave for one off season. He wanted to play football as a freshman a handful of years ago. He didn't end up playing ball after that, but just this year he's a senior, and he's at weight training with just regular people, and he's basically the teacher is asking him to lead it, and he was only with Dave doing Olympic weightlifting 3 months that year. It's just like anything else, guys. It's all reps, and the weight doesn't matter at first, and whether it matters later or not, that's really up to you guys. But just getting that muscle memory going, teaching them the right techniques, just like you would on a football field. So by the time they get to the next level, they are ready to just explode, whether it's on the field, in the weight room, and hopefully in the classroom as well. Now that they've kind of learned that there's a process for getting better at things. My body needs, I need to go work out. My mind, I need to go read. Same things. We're all just teaching life skills here, so it just keeps compounding on each other for sure.
Yep, learning how to learn, as the SEALs say. But the idea that you hit the nail on the head there with just understanding the movements, and there is no weight too light to start to benefit from understanding those movements. So
Exactly.
Just checking egos and just making sure that the kid knows, like, when my kids are lifting, I have kind of two scores that I'm looking at in tandem. The score that represents the amount of weight on the bar, and everybody wants to put more weight on. They always want to. And then there's the score that I have in my head, like, how good did that look technically on the scale of 1 to 10? Was that a 7? Was that an 8? Because if it falls below a 7, then nope, a D is failing. We're not passing that. So you're not going to go up. So making sure that you have some sort of mechanism to keep the kids safe.
Exactly. Okay, cool. So the long and the short of it, to answer all these commonly asked questions, there is not an age that's too early to start the process. Let's just call it the process, right? When they get to a certain point and they've shown that they have, you introduce the movement, they can do the movement. That you introduce a light bar, they can do that, and you just kind of work through it as their body can handle it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So no matter if that's
just challenge positions. Once positions are challenged and you see like they're kind of struggling to hold those really good positions, then you stop adding weight until they can exhibit control and efficiency in those movements. And when you see that, then you add a little more weight. And so just being smart about the whole process, but not needing to go ahead and test a 1 rep max and all these exercises and work off percentages. That's not required. Just make sure that you're present and that you're smart about it, and that you're getting enough the reason I like the Olympic variations, especially, if you don't have a lot of other information, is, you're going to work posterior chain stuff. So you're going to work hamstrings and glutes and low back through the pulling of those movements. And you're going to work anterior muscle groups like your quadriceps and your core and all of those muscles in the front of your body when you receive the weights. And so you can kind of self-equalize. But, as you get going, the bilateral movements, the Olympic lifts, the squatting movements, those should also be supplemented with what we call unilateral movements. So working off one leg, whether it's a single leg squat, or whether it's, some sort of single leg Romanian deadlift, or whether it's like a jumping lunge, things that are going to represent, working off of one leg. And then in multiple different planes of motion. So, during having some rotational aspect of training is important. So
this is all great. I mean, I think it's just like anything else. You get introduced to it. Now they have some information to arm themselves with. And whether you go to California Strength, which I definitely suggest you do, or wherever you try to start your process, you have some things that you can look for, with some things that you can actually kind of ask the trainer. Because as you said, Dave, it's not just anybody that can do this. Like, I have an ACE certification for working out at the gym, but that I would never want to claim that I can teach this stuff, even after I've watched what you've done. So, find the right people. Dave's app, just go to californiastrength.com if you want to learn more about the app. As he said, it's optimized for the younger levels. So, you could actually go on, learn with your child, get that knowledge for yourself, and maybe put it to I've seen plenty of guys our age and older at your gym.
Yeah, do some of the workouts yourself. I mean, that's a really good thing. Like, I think that to hit the pause button on the youth and talk about us older guys, I'm 43, you're 40. Like, if you stop sprinting, you start dying. So everybody, irrespective of age, needs to continue to sprint. So it could be hill sprints, it could be small intervals, but doing ballistic movements is a really important mechanism that unlocks a lot of good pathways, keeps you young, keeps your testosterone coming. So make sure you keep sprinting, guys. And then I would say that one final note for the kids and for the adults too, to embrace and start to fall in love with core stability stuff. So like, doing some dead bugs with your kids every night. If you don't know what a dead bug is, go on YouTube. There's hundreds of different variations of a dead bug exercise, some side planks, some planks, like learning about how important it is to stabilize that pillar is going to keep their back healthy, keep their hip flexors, functional and firing, all the things you're going to need to be a great athlete over time. No,
it's huge. And I love that advice, because probably the majority of guys are just looking down right now, just like me, like, man, I gotta do something. And I appreciate you dropping some knowledge for these coaches out there.
Absolutely. I appreciate what you're doing, man. So all good stuff. So happy to help. Good.
And we'll look for that Netflix drop, man. I'm excited about that. That's so cool.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't just shelve it, but
it'll be fine. All right, cool. Well, I'm gonna cut it out there. Anything else you want to say, Dave? Floor is yours. Do you have anything to add that you want to get out there?
No, I just think that the last thing is just what we're doing to help youth football around the nation is just it's mission critical right now. There's so many kids that I work with at the professional level that wouldn't have any opportunities if it wasn't for football. No. So it definitely puts people in a position to be exposed to mentors that change their lives. So, I know a lot of kids that, we work with that they don't have dads at home. They have football coaches that are basically teaching them right from wrong. So keep fighting the good fight, and proud of everything that you're doing. And I'm happy that people are tuning in and trying to become better coaches, because kids need it.
Yes, sir. Especially at the youth level, all volunteers. It's a special breed. So we appreciate those words of encouragement, Dave. Yep. And we'll be talking soon, man. Good luck with the upcoming NFL season that we are going to have. We're going to play football this year, buddy.
Yeah, we will. The NFL only has a handful of games to make back their $1.5 billion. So we gotta play some games.
All right, right on, Dave. And thank you everyone out there for listening.